What if I told you that in 2021, one of the biggest banks in the world proudly bought a startup that didn't really exist the way they thought it did? JPMorgan Chase, the American financial giant, believed it had found the perfect gateway to millions of young college students, an untapped market hungry for loans, banking, and financial aid guidance. The mastermind behind it all was a 29-year-old entrepreneur named Charlie Javice, hailed as a fintech prodigy, praised for building a company that supposedly helped millions of students navigate the maze of college financial aid. But here's the twist. What if I told you those millions of users weren't real at all? Because when JP Morgan looked closer, the truth unraveled. Frank's data was fabricated, its promises hollow, and its founder at the center of a scandal that shocked both Wall Street and Silicon Valley. This is the story of Charlie Javice and Frank, a cautionary tale of ambition, deception, and the dark side of startup culture. Charlie Javice grew up in Westchester County, New York, an affluent suburb not far from Manhattan. She attended the prestigious Wharton School at the University of Pennsylvania, where she quickly developed a reputation as an ambitious, confident, and savvy young entrepreneur. While still a student, she launched her first business, seeking to make financial services more accessible. That effort failed, but it laid the groundwork for her next big idea: helping students with the complicated and intimidating free application for federal student aid. In 2017, Charlie Javice founded Frank, branding it as TurboTax for federal student aid. The idea was simple but powerful. Millions of students every year struggle with the federal student aid maze of questions, deadlines, and technicalities. Many give up altogether, leaving billions of dollars in financial aid unclaimed. Frank promised to streamline the process, helping students get the money they needed for college quickly and efficiently. The pitch struck a chord. Investors lined up, and the press praised Charlie Javice as a visionary addressing a real social problem. She was featured on Forbes' 30 Under 30 list and hailed as one of the rising stars of fintech. But behind the bright headlines, the pressure was building. Frank was competing in a crowded market, growth was slower than expected, and Charlie Javice needed to impress both investors and potential partners. By 2019, Charlie Javice was actively positioning Frank as a must-have platform for banks that wanted to connect with young people. She claimed Frank had already attracted millions of student users who trusted the platform to guide them through financial aid. These numbers were gold. To a giant like JPMorgan Chase, reaching college students was a strategic priority. If Frank had millions of engaged users, it was a gateway to future customers for checking accounts, credit cards, and loans. Charlie Javice's charm, combined with Frank's apparent growth, made the pitch irresistible. By 2021, JP Morgan was seriously considering an acquisition. During negotiations, the question of Frank's user base came to the forefront. JP Morgan wanted to know, did Frank really have millions of student customers? Charlie Javice and her team provided spreadsheets, data files, and claims of an enormous database: 4.25 million students. That figure was the crown jewel of the deal. It represented credibility, market penetration, and the promise of long-term growth. In September 2021, JP Morgan officially acquired Frank for $175 million. Charlie Javice became a JP Morgan executive. She was suddenly at the top of the financial world, celebrated as a young founder who had pulled off a major success. But the numbers were about to unravel. Shortly after the acquisition, JP Morgan attempted to test Frank's customer base. The bank wanted to email millions of Frank users with promotional offers. But there was a problem. The responses didn't match expectations. Of the millions of supposed Frank users, only a few hundred opened emails. The engagement rate was so low that JP Morgan executives began to question whether the user base was even real. Investigations soon revealed the shocking truth. Frank didn't have 4.25 million users. In fact, the real number was closer to 300,000. To make the company appear larger, Charlie Javice had allegedly fabricated user data. Prosecutors later claimed she had worked with a data science professor to generate millions of fake names, emails, and information that looked authentic but did not correspond to real students. The illusion had been so convincing that JPMorgan, one of the most powerful and sophisticated banks in the world, had been massively defrauded. By late 2022, JPMorgan was furious. The bank filed a lawsuit against Charlie Javice, accusing her of massive fraud and fabricating data to inflate Frank's value. They claimed she had misrepresented the company's scale in order to secure the $175 million deal. In turn, Charlie Javice countersued, alleging that JPMorgan had fabricated reasons to fire her and avoid paying contractual obligations. The legal battle quickly attracted public attention. Then, in early 2023, federal prosecutors stepped in. The U.S. Attorney's Office for the Southern District of New York charged Charlie Javice with fraud, conspiracy, and false statements. She was accused of orchestrating one of the most brazen startup deceptions in recent memory. The charges carried the possibility of decades in prison. The once celebrated entrepreneur who had graced magazine covers was now facing criminal prosecution. The startup world, already plagued by stories of overhyped valuations and questionable ethics, had found its latest cautionary tale. The Frank scandal was not just about one founder. It highlighted deeper problems in the startup ecosystem. In Silicon Valley and beyond, young entrepreneurs are often encouraged to fake it till you make it. Exaggerating growth, inflating numbers, and painting an overly rosy picture are sometimes seen as part of the game. Investors reward ambition and vision, even when the details don't fully add up. But where is the line between optimism and fraud? Charlie Javice's case forced this question into the spotlight. Was she simply doing what many founders quietly do, stretching the truth to attract investment? Or had she crossed into deliberate deception on a massive scale? Critics argue that the ecosystem itself incentivizes dishonesty. Founders who present conservative numbers risk being ignored. Those who exaggerate attract attention and funding. In this environment, some decide the only way to survive is to bend, or even break, the truth. The Frank scandal revealed the dangers of this culture, showing how even one of the largest banks in the world could be misled. As the legal battle continues, the story of Charlie Javice and Frank offers stark lessons. For investors and institutions, it is a warning about due diligence. If JPMorgan could be fooled, what about smaller firms with fewer resources? Blind trust in glossy presentations and impressive founders can lead to costly mistakes. For students, the scandal is a bitter irony. A company that claimed to help young people with financial aid instead became a case study in financial deceit. Many who signed up for Frank in good faith had their data used in ways they never intended. And for the startup world, the message is clear. The culture of hype has consequences. Success built on lies is fragile, and when the truth emerges, the fall is devastating. The story of Charlie Javice and Frank is more than just a tale of corporate fraud. It is about the intersection of Charlie Javice and accountability in a world where data is everything. A 29-year-old founder convinced the largest bank in the United States that her startup had millions of loyal users. She received a $175 million payday, only for it all to collapse when the truth emerged. It raises questions about the values of our financial and startup systems. If investors reward growth at all costs, can we really be surprised when founders take shortcuts? If banks and regulators don't scrutinize claims, how many more Franks are out there, waiting to be exposed? As new entrepreneurs rise and the next wave of startups promise to change the world, the Frank scandal remains a reminder that innovation without integrity can become deception. And perhaps the most important lesson is this: trust is fragile. Once broken, it cannot be easily repaired. If you found this documentary insightful, don't forget to like this video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the stories that shape our world. Because understanding the past and present scams may be the only way to protect ourselves from the next one.